All right. Thank you, Ozeki. I am live, I think. People will start seeing me soon. I know it's a little delayed. Let me know if you can hear me and see me. I did make sure that I'm using the right camera and audio. Yep. All right. Welcome. People are coming in, I know. I know no one starts their live streams on time because the audience needs to show up. But I see it showing up, so that's great. Awesome. Thank you. I see we have... So tonight, for those of you coming in tonight, I'm going to talk about what HueForge can and can't do. I'm going to walk through a bunch of scenarios, and then is that Liz over there? And then I'm going to take questions. So it's going to be, I'm trying to keep it to an hour just because I have dev work to do. Thank you, Cian. That's awesome to hear. But I just wanted to cover as many questions and answer as much stuff as I can. So I will promise, for those of you who were on the stream last night on Discord, and if you have HueForge and you aren't on Discord and you want to be, the link was in your download email. It's probably expired if you didn't get your download email in the last couple of days. So please go ahead and hit me up in the store chat if you can for a new Discord link, and I'd be happy to give it to you. I can see in the store chat that you bought it, and I could have a quick script to just issue you an updated Discord link. We have, I think, 1,200 people, 1,500 people, or 1,100 people on the Discord right now who are helping each other, and there's a lot of people able to spend time getting you through the early stages that I don't have the time necessarily to always do. I want to help everybody, but I can't help everybody. Hello. All right. We have a good number here, so I'm just going to hop right in. Okay, so HueForge, I'm going to bring it up while I'm here. That's wrong with them. Okay. All right, this is HueForge. It is not always the easiest tool to use right out of the box. So I'm going to walk through a little bit of just basics of how to use HueForge. I'm going to start with easy mode with the black and white photo. This isn't actually a photo. It's a Midjourney image. I'm pulling a bunch of Midjourney images tonight to start with. And I actually didn't pre-do most of them. So some of them are going to work and some of them aren't. And that's good because I want you to see what's going to work and what's not. So, all right. So black and white images are generally easier. There are some color spaces that are harder to deal with than others. But let's just start with this one. Okay, we have this picture on the right here of a woman. And on the left here, she's sort of okay, but she's not great. One of the issues with black and white images is that often you need fewer colors than you think. And this is kind of counterintuitive, but bringing down your total number of colors and bringing down your total depth can give you a lot more control over what the image looks like. Let's see here. Oh, that's not going to change anything. Okay. I just play with sliders. It's hard for me to always talk through what they are. Now, so her shirt is grayish. So I actually probably do want a gray in here to kind of give her shirt that gray color. Now, for sliders, I move the sliders roughly to the area I want. And then I scroll with the mouse wheel to get to where I want. Sad that the Discord live stream has lower compression and better quality. Hopefully it'll pick up. Hopefully it's not my side. Last night I dropped a couple times. Hopefully that'll pick up. That gray didn't really work, so I'm going to bring this gray up. Oh, here, let's stop here. Notice that the two sliders at the bottom are red. They're red they both say 10 and they're red, and that's because they're both at the same layer. And that's a warning to you that you don't want to leave them like that. When they're both at the same layer, that means that one of them gets picked. And there's one that will get picked, but it's hard to know ahead of time. And so you shouldn't leave it here. You should not leave it as in this mode. You need to move it at least one up. I'm going to move it up a little more. There we go. That actually looks good. We're getting some of the shadows on the shirt now. I think one of the issues here is that the white is too has too high of a, or too low of a transmission distance. There we go. Bring in a slightly more transparent white with an 8 TD. So the transmission distance is how far light can travel through the filament before it gets really dim. It's not actually looking for it to stop entirely before it gets really dim, and it's effectively, if you're not looking straight at it in a dark tube, you can't see it. That's what the transmission distance is, and it is calculated from the backlit lithophane model. It's calculated for lithophanes, which HueForge does, but it is calculated for lithophanes, but I scale it and use that same number, greatly scaled down, non-linearly scaled down to do the filament paintings. So it is the same number, but you can't look at it. One of the common misconceptions people have is that, hey, Print Division, hey, everyone coming on. One of the common misconceptions people have is, well, don't you need to print a step test like this? That's, you know, if the TD is 8, don't you need to print one 8 millimeters tall to see it? And no, because with a TD of 8, which this actually may be that filament, I think this is that filament, with a TD of 8, it's actually going to be opaque at less than a millimeter thick because I've greatly scaled that transmission distance. So that's a common misconception that I just want to talk about. Let's see here. So I'm having some issues getting this the way exactly I want. I'm actually going to drop her overall. Oops, that's 15 enough. Drop this down. 0.5. Bring. There we go. That's getting closer. So a lot of this is playing around with not just the color sliders. The color sliders, what everyone looks at. Oh, good, Phil. Great. I'm looking forward to seeing all the community videos on HueForge because people come to it with a different perspective than I do as a creator. And they see different problems with it, and they see different possibilities with it. So I love that people are making videos on it. And if you hate it, that's fine. I want to see what you think. So one of the things people don't understand, it's a very common question, is I added colors to my color library over here, and they don't show up. And it took me a long time to understand what they were talking about. And what they meant is they don't show up down here for me to use. Yeah, and I will go over a bit about how to do HueForge as a lithophane. So they don't show down here for you to use. And why is that? Well, you have to move them. So you can either click and drag the color swatch down and bring them in here. And actually, these high transmission distance reds are really nice for this. They can actually do really nice skin blends where you may even want to get rid of that gray and use the red instead. Or you can left click on this and set the filament and pick one of your types and pick your filament that you want to use. This is a little more cumbersome, but it can be an easy thing to do. And I can bring in color cast this way and see different ways to look at it. There's over here are all the different, what I call brightness compensation modes. There's just a variety of different curves on the luminance. And actually, I like this curve for this image. It seems to match this side image very well. So I might keep this one in here. But it's a lot of experimentation. When I add an image with the black parts in the back, black parts are keyed out, and I can't figure out how to prevent that. Okay, yeah, all right. That's a good question. And okay, so I'm going to do two things. First, I'm going to go through a lithophane. This is a great image I can make a lithophane out of. And then I'll look over the black part issue because I know exactly what you're talking about. So to go to a lithophane, you literally just switch this slider and it switches to lithophane. Now, this doesn't look very good. And that's because it just reverses the order of your sliders. And you probably look at this. I know a lot of people go to lithophane and say, oh, it looks terrible, and switch back. There is no undo yet. I will be working on that, but there is no undo yet. That's correct. Select something in the, no. Okay, so that's, there is no current way to select a particular color or region of image and set it to a color, because let's look at that. Well, let me do this real quickly first. So one of the things to be careful of in HueForge is that you often, people say, well, I turned it into something and it didn't look good, and so I just moved away. Well, you have to play with it. It doesn't, when it transitions, it's not always great to start with. Now, a lithophane probably needs to be thicker. to give me more room to play with. But this actually came out. This is pretty nice. This is what this would look like as a lithophane. And it's not very thick. I can obviously make it thicker. Most lithophanes are going to be thicker. That lets me move my black further up, which is kind of important. So I can move all of my colors up, my whites and things up to get more range. But actually, honestly, that 1.5 was, oh, there we go. Here we go. But 1.5 would print a lot faster, so I might go back to that. Again, when you change your depth, it's not going to change on you, so you have to fix it. Oh, important factor. There is no difference. There is no ordering of sliders. The ordering of the sliders doesn't matter left to right. It only matters top to bottom. So this one is the lowest color. This one is the next lowest color. This one is the next lowest. So basically from here to here is white. From here to here is this coffee color. From here to here is the gray. And from here to here is black. So, and if I turn on up here, if I click normal and go to shader mode, you can kind of see this is how the slicer will see it. And this is how they'll print with black on top. Let me come in here. With black on top, then gray, coffee color, and white. This is what this button's for. And you can also click here. You can middle mouse click and switch between modes so you can see it. But I mean, I think you'll agree this is a pretty good looking lithophane, and it's laying down. This is a laying down lithophane, which means you can print it a lot faster without having to worry about it rattling away. Okay, would it be possible to select something right to use in one image? Sometimes drag a color and don't like it. There's no undo and no way to know what was previously there. That's what the shaders are for. The reload shaders, that's actually the graphics thing, and I normally use that for debugging and just haven't turned it off. But this, yeah, the shaders, this switches between shader modes so that you can do this is what the slicer sees, and this is what the blending should be. Now, some people have said, oh, well, it looks better. I get a better prediction if I use the slicer. And the answer for that is always that you haven't characterized your filaments, and your filaments have much, much lower transmission distances than they're calculated to have in here. And you need to calculate your filaments. If you have all transmission distances of 1 or less, then this is going to be more accurate than this because you didn't put the right filaments in. So this is, as I said, this is a lithophane, which means that it's actually the inverse of the luminance. So let me show you that real quickly. We can change this here. I am running the new mode. I'm running the updated version that I've been working on, the bug fix version I've been working on. So some things that won't work in your current version properly will work in this version, and that's what I'm working to get out. So let's see here. Okay, so you can see the luminance map here. This is how the heights are picked, and this is to answer your question, Phil. Currently, you can't pick a particular region or color and assign it to a slider. That is definitely a goal of mine, to be able to do something in that neighborhood. It's not quite as easy as it sounds, but that is, once I have this patch out and a Mac build working, that is literally the next order. Glizzo, yeah, I'm sorry. I will address that right now. Polymaker got swamped this week with Prime Week. Prime Week has been incredibly busy for them, and so he is running a little behind. It's a manual process that he has to do on his side. I have been feeding him the data, but it looks like from the 8th on is still sitting in the spreadsheet. He has certainly indicated that he will send them out. They just haven't been sent yet. You do have 90 days after the coupon is issued to get more filament. And yes, Daniel Hansen, the Polymaker preloaded TDs are already tuned correctly. There's one exception, I think, the Polymaker orange that's in here is PET G. That's my personal orange, and that orange is from a year and a half, 2 years ago. And it is a 7.5. If I do my work, it's 7.5, but the one that they make now is a 4.5. And Steve Smith, there isn't actually a commonplace yet. There's some people have started spreadsheets, Google Sheets, but no in particular individual one has taken off and people have grabbed to it and said, this is the one I want. And so I kind of don't have time to manage that. I'd be happy if someone wants to step up and be a community manager for that. I'd be happy to give them a role on the Discord or on Facebook and have them kind of manage that and run that. But so far, no one's really stepped forward and wanted to do that. I will probably set up something like a GitHub that maybe we can start getting or just maybe we just set up some Google Sheets that we can get that done in. And I will write, or someone else can write, I'm sure, a Python script to convert to the JSON that I consume in HueForge. Okay, let's talk a couple of common questions. One, right, are these TDs correct? The TDs that are in the file so far are correct as far as we know. However, the Polymaker ones have been recently measured. We have ASA and ABS coming in as well. So those should be in for the next release, I believe. Disturb Medic did all of the testing on that. He's been using a very analytical method with a light sensor. It's pretty clearly the better method, the more consistent method for it than your perceptual method of looking at the step test. But the step test is free, a tiny little bit of filament, a little bit of time, and it gets you pretty close. And most people, once you get used to doing it and seeing the results, you can kind of start interpreting it more accurately. And so that's why I push the step test. People have an easier time with that than holding up the oscilloscope to their eye and making the determination when the transition is. But if you do have a light sensor, or you want to buy a light sensor and test your filament, he's got a process written down that he uses, and it's definitely the more accurate and consistent process. So literally, if you just handle, Jacob, the hex code for the color, the brand, the name, transmission distance, and you can add, if you want to add some more, like if we want to add more fields that people want, if we want to add a brand and a type, so Polymaker Polyterra, Polymaker Polylight, or we want to add anything else that you want to add, as long as those fields are there as column headers, it's super easy for me to jam out some JSON from that. And I don't mind if you add some extra columns. I can either import them and not use them, or ignore them, or import them and display them if they end up being useful to users. So that would be great. Okay, so this is the Lithophane mode. It looks basically the same. The one thing I will say is that this stuff up in the corner works for this. There is a bug on this right now that it won't update properly, so I need to fix that. It's the same bug that this had, but this works now. So if I change the bright and enhance mode, it will change the luminance and the image. The luminance image over here on the right. Sorry, over here on the right. I'm pointing, but you can't see my hands. It'll change that between one of the modes. Dim is almost never right for a lithophane. But the process of making a lithophane is basically the same as the process of making a filament painting, with a couple of caveats. The major caveats are that you can't, the color shifting, the color space that you can work in is more limited, because it takes so long to get through a color. So for instance, if I bring a red in here anywhere, the whole thing's going to turn red, like all the way it's going to turn red. And I can't put a blue in here with it. Even let's see, do I have a more transmissive blue? Yeah, even a transmissive blue, I can get a purple out of it, but I can't ever, there I got some blue because it's below the red, but if I ever go above the red, it's going to be, it's hard for me to get that blue in there at all, except for as a purple. And that's because those transmission distances are so much longer. They're not stepped on. So basically the filament painting steps on the transmission distance and squashes it down and makes it work for filament painting. But for the backlit, it's the real thing. It's the actual number. And so it's much, much harder to blend more colors with the filament painting. Over a certain distance, this blue will just dominate whatever's underneath it. So if I switch back to filament painting, this doesn't look very good, but the blue will dominate, over the red. Now, obviously, this is not looking good. What works for a lithophane often doesn't work for a filament painting, so you have to be aware of that. So let's see here. Take the red out of here. Okay, so this is kind of easy mode, black and white. Let's talk about a few new things that are in here and a few new things that are coming. So one of the things that is an issue here, actually, I have an image for this. Just a sec. This one sort of shows it. Oh, this one might show it. Okay. One of the issues in here is that I had my red and my blue switched. Oh, I'm in Luminance mode, so you can't see the color. All right, so this has red here and blue up front. And it's a lighter blue, but it has a blue up front. And the issue is in the way that I was slicing it, it was backwards. And I have red and blue reversed in how they should be perceptually for Luminance. You see here, if you look, this is the place to look right here. This is all kind of flat. The red isn't really any brighter than the blue. It should be. Perceptually, we look at it and we say, this red is brighter than this blue. This looks darker to us. And that's because we weakly perceive blue. And I have it reversed. So all your stuff will load with the legacy checkbox. All your old projects, they look the same, but all your new ones will work this way. And then you'll get much better where it's much easier to conceive of putting the red out here. The step height, good question, Dwen. The step height is actually just a convenience for you for whatever the step height of your printer is. If you want to use the arrow keys here to adjust your layer heights. I don't use it. I just enter the number I want here. But you could, if you set, so some printers have different step heights. The Prusa's have a different step height. The switch wires have a different step height. Anything belt driven has a different step height. Or if you have different Z lead screws, you have a different step height. And so that is just to allow you to easily adjust these numbers. Base layer can be anything you want. I just recommend that it's at least that it's a multiple of your base layer. There's one exception, but it's not super important. But so let's look at this. We have okay, so we have this image and the color scheme is not what we want. So let's just drag out all of our wrong colors. Just go to black and white first. I have fixed, there was a bug with dynamic depth and clip depth where it would show one of these colors. The first 0 color, this red, would be showing at the top, which you don't want. That's fixed in this build. It was actually, ironically, that I was trying to be really careful about what I did, and I limited it to only work in the static height. So, let's talk about static height versus dynamic height. Dynamic height actually adjusts the mesh as you come down and up. It actually changes the shape of the mesh. Let me show that here. It's recalculating the mesh as you come down and up. So the mesh itself changes, all the coloring will change. Clipped mode only chops off the top of the mesh. It doesn't recalculate the whole mesh. It just flattens out the top and reduces how much of the top color there is. And then the static depth is just always full depth. Does reduce? Yes, reducing max height changes a lot about how the paints work. It's a double-edged sword, right, though. So if you want a lot of different colors in your image and you want a lot of color space in your image, then you probably want a tall height. But if you only want 2, 3, 4, up to 4, but probably 2 or 3 really like main colors, then you really don't want it very tall because you're going to really fight yourself on blending because you're going to have these thick layers on top of each other rather than thin layers to give you smooth blends. So, so for instance, in this model, I probably can get away with not that many colors. In fact, there's, these live streams will definitely be saved. I've done a couple of really short videos. I will add specific filament library videos as well, and a couple other features that I've missed. It's just been so crazy. Let's talk about making new filaments real quickly. You can click the new filament button. This is obvious, but the less obvious thing, someone asked me, hey, what if I want to create, like I want to make a Polymaker Polylight ABS? You can copy a filament. Now from here, if you copy a filament, you can't change its type. So really, you'd make your first ABS. You'd say, I have an orange ABS. It's Polylight, and it's orange. And I don't know what the TD is off the top of my head. We'll add it. It'll add a new tab up here. And then you can right click on here and say copy filament. And then it'll copy it and you can change the color to yellow. Say it's Polylight yellow. Give it and so on. You can do this and just keep adding them that way, so you don't have to keep entering all the information every time. And new filament, all brand new information. It will. New filament should default. Let's see, make sure it does. It should default to, whatever type tab you're on. So whatever tab is open, this add filament should default to it. So I can say this is Polylight red, and it's a 3. It'll just keep adding them. I am adding the feature that anything that you don't own, if you double click on this, it'll hide it. I'll make it obvious that that's being hidden, but you can now hide unowned filaments. You don't have to scroll through a giant list of unowned filaments to get to your own filaments, if that makes sense. All right, so let's look at this image real quickly. Let's look at it. It actually looks like I want a yellow, a red, and like a light blue maybe, or a medium blue, and a black. I mean, black is almost always good to have. Has the black part of images been? Oh, no, I have not addressed that yet. Okay, so a couple of things that can happen. One, if your min depth is set to 0, the black areas are going to vanish because they are transparent. When you set your min depth to 0, it's saying I want everything that's true black to be transparent. It's a cheap way around of transparency. And there's also a bug in your version, but not the version I'm running right now, that where I put this back up, it won't reset them and you'll have to remesh. But my guess is, and I have seen an issue where it isn't set to 0 and I still get transparency. I'm working on that one, CubeCat. That's a bug and I can't figure that one out. Normally you need to change your bright enhancement mode to something else to fix that. I'm not exactly sure what's causing that, but I have seen that one. But yeah, the major issue is if your min depth is set to 0, then black will disappear. So I hadn't addressed that. Does that help you? Does that fix your issue, or do you think you have a different problem? Because I have seen a couple cases where I have to play around with the enhancements and the various things a couple ways to make it work. The other thing that I added was this sRGB checkbox. All your old sys stuff will load with that checked, because that's what I was doing on sRGB linearize. Now it's optional. In many images, it makes no difference. This one makes no effective difference, but in some images, it does make a difference. Same thing with full range. In many images, it makes no difference. This one has a true black and it has a true white in it, so this will make no difference. But if you have an image that doesn't, it will greatly expand your luminance range to play with, which may or may not be what you want. Okay, so let's take a look at this one real quickly. We need a red. And actually, I'm going to use a pretty opaque red here. I have that one actually loaded. But it should be up higher because it's the color. And then we'll bring in a blue. What color is this? This is a blue. Okay. But this may be not a dark enough blue. We'll see. And maybe that red's too dark. Maybe I'll bring in the brighter red. Drag it down. That's very purple because it's too transmissive. So you know what? Let's take this one in PLA. And actually have a lot of these colors of PLA. I just don't have them checked because I'm the test unit. We'll bring this one in. That's much brighter red. That's better. It's really cool that there's actually a ton of colors of red and blue, or there's kind of colors of blue out there. There's a lot of shades of blue available, which is really cool and gives you a lot of options, especially when you get some that are a little bit, let's do this. Let's sort by blue. And we'll come up here and look. And we'll find one of the lighter blues. There's the teal, the aqua blue. I like the aqua blue. The teal's a little bit too opaque for me. Okay, so we get some of the blue in there. I actually don't necessarily want it to be truly white, but if we wanted a true white to show up, you can color sort. That's going to start white at the top and put in a darker, like a polyteric cotton white here maybe. And that'll give you a little bit of white, real white highlights at the top. Actually, I'm kind of liking where we're at here. It's not perfect, but I kind of like where we're at. Maybe we'll try a different color mode. Maybe standard would be better. Okay, this is confusing, right? Standard is all the sliders disappeared, went back to black and white. And that's because we had a standard mode saved. When I drop a new image in, I should clear those. But we had a standard mode saved already, and so that's why they did that. It went back to the old mode it had, so you may have to make these adjustments again. And then this, let's bring up. That's not the blue, that's gray. What do we need to display for sales? You should display the certificate that is in your commercial license, and the number field that's empty is your order number. So you just put your order number in there, and you're good to go. Does that make sense? And then just put it as a product photo, a background product photo, or a if you want to put a link to it, if you have some page to load it and you say, you know, commercial or authorized commercial seller, and you have a link and it takes you to that image, or you put it on your page banner or your store banner or something like that, all those are fine. It just should be displayed on the store. Oh, and we need a yellow. We want a yellow in here. The lemon yellow is good. Yeah, so if it's, I don't care if it's a base shop page is fine. Like if you have a banner on your front page in the bottom corner, you put a readable version of it. It doesn't have to be like the full resolution. It's a readable version where you can see your order number and which license you have. That's fine. And again, if you have another place that you want to link to it, you want to put it in as a file, and you just want to put a link to, like, you know, commercial license holder number, whatever, and then that's a link to your certificate. That's fine too. Does that make sense? It's basically just so that someone can come, you know, a buyer can check, and then also I can check and say, okay, this person's, you know, making bank on it, which I hope you are. I hope a ton of people make a lot of money on this. You know, they're making bank on this, and I can track down that, oh, yep, I sold it to them, and they have this license. And I don't plan on doing a ton of that, but at some point I'm sure I'm going to have to do some of it. So here's a case where actually I think I need to bring the yellow down and the blue up to get the look that we want. And here, you know, it's not perfect. It doesn't look exactly like their image, but I kind of like it. That's standard mode. Let's look at Bright Enhance 1. Again, it's blown out because we loaded it before. Our colors are all loaded here, so we just need to adjust how they're arranged. So we all know that we know they're here already. It is kind of annoying when that happens. I think if I load a new project, it clears them all out, but when I just load a new image, it doesn't. And then we got and I'm just trying to, come on. There we go. I don't know why I didn't want to grab. I'm just get them in rough position, and then, yeah, see this one. I don't like this one as much. I think it's too bright. Even if I bring the black up, I mean, it's kind of a cool effect actually, but it's not fair. Okay, and this is part of Hue Forge. Yeah, it's a big change, right? It's very, now because I've set these all, I can now look back and forth. I can say this is what standard looks like. I can say what Bright Enhance 2 looks like, and I can say this is what this one looks like. And I actually kind of like this one, but it doesn't really look like this image, right? I think it's pretty cool. I think it would be an awesome print, but it doesn't really look like this image. Do I have a really dark? Oh, I have a gray. Let me see what a gray in here looks like. I was playing with resizing with trying to get the sliders to resize and get taller and so that I have it make it. This one doesn't pop that much. I actually kind of think it does. Get your initial investment back in 9 spools of Polymaker filament. Heck yes, you did. Again, thank you to Polymaker for this. I think we give them a little grace for this week because they're doing all this other stuff and they're being amazing about supporting Hue Forge, which they didn't have to do at all. I didn't have to give them anything. They're just being super, super friendly. So please go buy more Polymaker filament so they can keep offering coupons to more people and more people can get into Hue Forge. Because I think Hue Forge is really fun, and I'm super excited that people are into it. So this is how I go through. This is the process I go through, and you can save multiple copies of it with different settings. But let's talk about something else. Something that people have been asking for. Well, there's a couple things that people have been asking for and questioning about. One of the yellow's going here. One of them is how do I get bigger images than 300 by 300? Because right now the maximum size when you don't have filament at the top layer and the side. Oh, okay, that's a good question. Let me answer that. So in dynamic depth mode, when you don't have it at the top, it actually adjusts the mesh and makes the mesh that height. So this says it's 1.32, and this says the actual mesh depth is 1.32. So if I bring this back up, it's going to be up to my 1.52. If you have clip depth, it's not going to recalculate the mesh, but it is going to bring it down. It'll be a different height. I actually kind of like the white underneath there. That'll be it's 1.28 because the tallest slider is 1.28. And then for static depth, however, it just assumes that the top slider is all the way to the top no matter where it is. You see this, the actual max depth is 1.5. So it just assumes it's all the way to the top. So that's the answer to the question. Is the bottom brightness slider linked with combo options, or does it? Its effect is totally separately. It's basically just a brightness slider. One thing that will be coming on this, that's something that Ian has asked me for, and I agree, we want it, is he wants more control over how big the steps are. He wants to be able to do fine movement and coarse movement. So like right now it's some of these things are clipping. It's 0.01. It's 0.01 is your step, which seems really small, but sometimes when you get right around where you want to be, one step is way too much. And so we want to change it to be able to do 0.001. Will clip depth export it to STL at the correct height. So here, I'll show you. If I go to clip depth and I zoom in on this, and it's easier to see with the wireframe on, and I start clipping it, it actually shrinks the mesh down. It'll eventually squish the whole mesh down totally flat. That's interesting. That it squishes the mesh down flat, but doesn't stop all the colors. That looks like it's changing colors. So it's changing what the top color is. So actually, it only goes down to here. Let me do it with a black and white. Hold on. All right. Let's do this real quickly. Let's save this. Kind of like this one. Let's save this. We'll call it Kong. And then let me just reset these sliders right here. This will be easier to show. Bring this up a little bit. And then now I can come in here and you'll see that as I bring it down, the mesh just gets smaller. And it'll save with that. Yes, you'll catch the tail end. So it'll export at the depth that you are clipped to. It's literally just changed the mesh. This is the mesh that will be saved. What you're seeing on the screen is the mesh that gets saved when you save. It doesn't go and recalculate it one more time. It saves this exact mesh. Okay, but let's talk about something. Let me reload this project. So you come up here and reload an image or a project. Reload the project. Puts all the sliders back the way they were, and it actually sorts them. So it's like the cheat button to sort, but it will clear all of these other ones. So when you come to this one, it will be the exact same slider settings as you had before. And so, which actually in some ways is easier to adjust, maybe to get a close look. I actually think that pops a lot better. So, okay, but let's talk about something people have been asking me for, which is I want to print bigger than 300 by 300. And you can do that a couple different ways. Right now, with the version you have, it's a little difficult. I am going to add, it's actually not super difficult, but I am going to add a mode where you, I'm going to add the ability to set how big your max mesh is. However, there is a maximum number of triangles that I'm willing to draw at a time. Can we not get blue on top of the head? That's a good question. We did get blue, I think, in standard. I think standard we were able to get blue because it's a much more linear color space. But where's that? How do we get the red? Oh, the red shouldn't be there at all. It should just be on the edges. Are we not in legacy mode? That's the issue. If we want the top of the head is very similar to the luminance on the sides here. So if we look at the luminance, this gray is very similar to this gray. And so it's going to be very difficult to get them separated. I can put in, bright enhance 1. It still has kind of that issue. Bright enhance 2, maybe. Oh, we might be able to do it with a different color mode. Just a second. Let's go back to bright enhance 2, which I think gave us the best look. And then maybe we could try shifting the combo. There we go. Maybe here we can bring the yellow or the red up. The blues down. Let's do this. The blue can come up. You can make the red all the way. Yeah, it's tricky. It doesn't always work exactly the way you want right now. I'm working on getting it. Let's reset this. We can reload this project again. This is kind of your sort of undo button right now, but it's obviously very, very granular. For real pictures. Okay, so for photographs. Okay, let's see. Yes, I am going to have the ability to change the default directory that projects are saved to. Absolutely. That will be, at the very least, it will be in an INI file for you to manually change. But hopefully I'll have it with a GUI element too, where you can say what direction you want. And then do we have an ETA on the new version? My goal is this coming weekend. My goal was last weekend, but then I got bogged down trying to make the Mac version work with an older shader. So this is actually running the OpenGL 3.3 shaders. And I wrote the OpenGL 3.3 shaders for two reasons. One, to hopefully get Mac versions working. And two, do you have CubeCat? I'm assuming you have like a Intel built-in GPU. Try not to load a project, just try to load the image. I think that should fix it. Or it's actually, you might need to reset your what's it called? Just a second. You may need to reset your reg keys. Sometimes that can happen and cause you to crash. Let's see here. You might need to do this. If it has been working and has been able to load these projects and now you can't, you might need to do that. Okay, so where was I? The Mac. So anyway, I have the OpenGL 3.3 renderer work. It should make it so that people with lower end GPUs can run this with bigger meshes. Obviously, it'll be slow, but they can run it with bigger meshes. Here's the directions. You go into regedit CubeCat and go find that directory, the HT current user software Horn and Rohde HueForge, and just delete the whole directory. They say delete them, but make sure that HueForge is closed when you're doing it. Well, if it's crashed, it's closed, but make sure it's closed when you're doing it, because otherwise it'll rewrite over it and screw things up. It'll load in a default state it'll load with the defaults, but it'll load with all the dock windows and everywhere where they used to be. Right. So the Mac version, yeah. So I've made the progress that I got a 3.3 GL renderer working, and actually in some cases seems to run a little faster, which disturbs me because I was doing actual GPU generation of data. But the issue was I took it over to the Mac and the OpenGL just refused to read the 3.3, which I've seen that it can support 4.1. So there's probably a little bit of OpenGL esoteria I need to commit. And now it will run and try to load a project in parallels and crash. So that's sort of actually progress, because it's actually trying to render things, and that's what's causing the crashing, because it can use OpenGL 3.3. But so I'm making progress. My goal is after this release to just figure out it's probably something stupid almost, or very small and annoying that I have to do to get it to recognize properly and run. So that is my immediate goal, Nick, is to try to figure out the Mac version after this release. This release is going to be heavily about, there's a bunch of bug fixes in here, the legacy, the RGB to BGR fix for Luminance, the sRGB removal, fixing the clip depth zero height bug. Oh, I also allow much bigger image files now. Photographs, for instance. I know one of the issues here that you asked about real pictures, photographs can be really big. If you bring them off a camera and just turn them into a JPEG or a PNG, they can be quite large, and I was limiting you. You had to downsample them before you could use them. Now, anything up to 500 megabytes decompressed will load. And I'll make that a configurable option in the settings that you can increase if you need to, but hopefully most people won't need to increase that. So for doing actual photos, you're not probably going to be able to get true color. And I think it'll be a while before you can get true color, to be honest. Black and white is almost always possible, except for high key photos and things like that. I haven't said that here. The update will come out. You'll get an email about it through the Shopify store. It'll say, hey, there's a new update at this link. I'll update the text to tell you all the details about it, what the release notes are, what I've changed, what's updated, what's fixed, what's in it, what's not in it. This one, most of the time, it will just be a couple of files in a zip for an update, and then you can also always grab the whole thing. But this time, I have updated the Qt version I'm using, and as a result, you pretty much need the whole new directory. But I'm going to release the Filament library separately, so it doesn't it doesn't smash over your filament library. It's totally safe to unzip on top of all your executables in your projects. Nothing's going to overwrite except for the default projects that you probably don't care about at this point anyway. But if you had a filament library in there, it'll overwrite your filament library. The reg edits are in, you have to run regedit QCat. It's a tool. You go to the run window and type in regedit and run that. And then they have the registry. Actually, here, I'll run this here. And then under here, there, you want, what keys did I say? You want current user here, software, and then you want Horner Roadie, Hue Forge, and I just say delete that whole directory. That's how you do the registry edit thing. So one of the things I have fixed, this is a small request someone had, but these checkboxes go by 0.1 now rather than like 0.5. So one of the issues that people have is they are scrolling and they miss the scroll bar and they change these accidentally. In fact, I can see that I've changed one up here to 0. Cold white is definitely not a 0. Nothing's a 0. So these will all become just labels, and you'll right-click edit or potentially double-click edit them, and they'll pop up a little dialog for you to edit. And then also, when you go to leave, it will tell you that they need to be saved, and it will show you exactly what needs to be saved, what's different, and you can uncheck things you don't want to save. If you're like, oh, I accidentally changed that, you can just uncheck that one and save the rest. So that will be a new mode that comes up. And when you hit the save button, that same dialog will come up. You can get red file for users. Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Actually, so up here, these don't do anything yet, but up here I have the ability to turn these back on. But yeah, we can make a .reg. If you could make a .reg, GamerGeek, that would be awesome. That's a good idea. I didn't even think about that. I feel weird about making .regs because, they mess with the registry. But we should also make one to associate HueForge with .hfps as well. Okay. Okay, so one of the things I want to talk about, really big images. So right now, one way you could make a really big image is to drop the detail size. So in your case, it's probably to 0.15. That's about the lowest you're going to be able to get. And then make this as big as you can get it. I think it's, yeah, mine will do it. I don't know if yours will go to 300. And save it. And let's do it. I actually was planning on doing this. So let's save this again. Then let me bring my slicer over. We'll load this mesh in your project folder. I had it loaded before. Kong, the big one, into your slicer. It's a huge file. I don't know if you caught the size of this file, but it's going to be a very big file. It is 219 megabytes. It's a lot of triangles. It is 4.5 million triangles. So it's a lot of triangles. And there are some open edges. I actually have found some bugs in this low height or low mesh size that I need to address. I'll be addressing those before release. So then you come in here and you do a plane cut. And you just slice it in half. You can do this in either order. I prefer to do the cut first so I can get rid of one of them and then work on just the other one. So you cut it. This will actually automatically move it off the bed, which is kind of annoying. But deselect it, save this one as a export as STL object. I like to do Kong front, and there's just the top of the bottom. Can't tell. I think it's the bottom. Don't say Kong front bottom. And then save it. And just to make my life faster, because I'm on a beefy computer and this is slow, I'll get rid of that one, bring this one in, and then we'll scale it in only X and Y so that you need this lock button to be unlocked. And then you would scale it to 200%, 200%, and then you would cut it again. And this time probably into 4 or into 2. it's still going to be fixed ratio, right? So if I want a full 300 by 300, I'll have to edit the ratio prior to HueForge. If you want this image to be 300 by 300, then yes. But any square image, yes, it's fixed ratio in HueForge right now. So if you want a different aspect ratio, then you need to change the aspect ratio before it comes into HueForge. At some point, I will adjust that. But like some basic image editing, contrast ratios, and being able to adjust your aspect ratio will be in there. But for now, yeah, it's fixed. Clear. Not loading any images at all. So you drop an image on and it crashes or it doesn't load that image. Okay, so cut it. Wait, why did that look like it didn't cut? Oh, move it. No, wait. Oh, did I not actually cut it? Did I? I cut it in half vertically, didn't I? No, I did. There you go. Okay. So now it's cut in half. Anyway, you can keep subdividing it however you need to. This would be at 0.3 detail, but because it's so big, that's going to be fine. It would be great for a 0.6 millimeter nozzle. You print a bunch of these. But that's the idea. You would grow it to a size that ideally you would have grown it to a size where this would fit on the bed, or maybe it's, it fits on the bed horizontally, but not vertically, and you'd have to cut it in half here, and these would fit. But that's the idea. You would make it a lower detail size than you would normally want, and then expand XY in the slicer and chop it up. Eventually, I'll add that to HueForge, but for right now, this is a pretty easy workaround. And that's the way this would work. Obviously, this one's too big, so I would have to slice it again. But I just wanted to walk you through that process. But yeah, if you change this size here, it's going to keep. So if I change this to 150 because I really want it. I change this to 150. I want it to be 150. Then it's going to bring this down to 267. Reset view. I'm still on wireframe. I am. This is written in C++ using the Qt libraries. Yeah, if that. Good point, Leland. That I fixed that too. For this version, it'll load any case it doesn't care about. Trying to think. Oh, the other thing it'll do is it will take. Let me show you. Bring this over. It will take. If you take this image and I rotate it, so like Windows 11 will let you rotate it in the GUI or in the file system, and if I do that and I reload this image. Okay, of course it's making me a liar. Oh, maybe Luminance doesn't rotate? Is this a different version? Oh, okay, yes, it is. This is expected. Sorry, there's a PNG here that's Kong, and if I rotate this one and I reload the image, it will rotate it. And the issue is that's just a metadata transform. That's not actually happening to the file. They haven't actually rotated the file. They've just assigned metadata to the file saying it's rotated. But it turns out it's easy to add that capability in. What sounds like it has for KubeCAD, I'm kind of confused. I think one person had this issue, and KubeCAD, do you have two GPUs? Is it possible that for some reason it decided to start using the old GPU, the lower end GPU, and not the discrete GPU? The only other thing, one person, and I have no idea why this worked, but he just moved the folder to a different location, and he's like, it had worked. He did the registry thing. It didn't work. He moved the folder to a new location, and all of a sudden it worked. So I don't know what's going on there. We can work with you on the Discord and try to fix that. Having an issue with the photo you looked at. And it was the extension. Yes. Yeah. The extension, the capitalization of the extension. Okay. So real photos. I don't have real photos here. Oh, well. No, I don't have real photos here I can use. But real photos, this is the closest. It's not a real photo, but it looks like a real photo. For real photos, I always want to start with grayscale because I find that the grayscale is just easier. It's just an easier starting point. And then I often want to shrink the depth. And And then you're never going to get the exact, oh, that was you. Okay. There's been a lot of people with issues that I've solved. You're never going to get an exact color match. So it's almost better to pick a scheme. Well, you're often not going to get an exact color match for people's photos. So it's often better to pick a scheme. And a lot of people like it. I've talked to several people who have said, like, I really like that color scheme that you picked because it makes it look a little different. So like maybe you bring an orange in here and you get a cast to it, or you bring a blue in here and you get a different color cast to it. That's probably not great. Maybe it'd be better if the blue was, this is a really solid blue. I don't think you want that. Let's put the steel gray in here, and then we'll put a different, with the magenta is super solid. So that's probably, like for photos, you almost certainly want higher TD filaments because they're going to be a lot easier to get skin tone blends and things like that from them. So I would say that for photographs, higher TD filaments are really good. That's actually why we put the natural in the Polymaker. What is here? The natural is part of the Polymaker filament photo set. The photo is Polymaker gray and Polylight gray, which is what's in here, and black. It's actually the charcoal black here, and then the natural, and the natural gives you a lot of blending capability here. This is not the right one. This is my pet PLA, Polylight Pro or Polylight White. Yeah, it's a 3. And sometimes you might want the whiter. So the natural gives you a lot of capability to do some blends that you couldn't do otherwise. I'm not getting what I want here though, so let's try a different enhance there. So I often take away the gray. I actually think it looks better most often without the gray. But sometimes an image looks better with the gray. And then it's just a playing game. But for photographs, I always start. Okay. Does the transparent checkbox do anything when in paint mode? It absolutely does. Let me bring in an image and show you what I mean. I had some transparent images here I was playing with last night. Here, this one. Okay. Transparent mode. If I check this, and this is a remesh operation when unchecking it, you have, oh no, it's not when unchecking it. Yeah, it is. Here we go. It will take the background, whatever color that transparent area is, and it will give it that depth. That makes sense? It'll ignore the transparent flag. So what's happening is transparency has a quote unquote color assigned to it, and the transparent checkbox will ignore that 0 and give you just the color information, but you do have to remesh. So that's what transparent does. Is yours up to date? Because mine only has 4 items in the menu and mine has 5. Up here, this menu, obviously I'm the developer, so I'm running the dev version. So yes, this is a newer version. These actually controls don't do anything yet. They're to help you bring back. People have destroyed, I've been able to delete docs accidentally, and they're to bring back your docs when you've accidentally deleted them and things like that. So yeah, that's what those are for. Oh yeah, this natural is great for this Peony, by the way. I was working on this last night. Let's see. I brought in a red, I think, the regular red. And then I brought in a purple. That one's too strong. Don't we have a purple that's not quite as strong? Oh, the Sunblue purple. I think I went to a brighter mode. But it gave me it gives me this great white that I can blend into. I think I used this and then also used the regular white. Might have actually been PEG. Let me go look. I think I saved this project. Yeah, look at that. Oh, this is with the 8. This is with the Bamboo Labs natural white. I think it gave just really, really nice depth to this. Yes, I'll include some of these other ones. The issue, of course, is that they're really filament dependent. Like this will not work the same with a different white. A white that doesn't have an 8. If you have a white that's a 3 in here, it's going to look totally different, and it's not going to be as, even the 6 here is not going to look. That's going to look pretty good, but it really is highly dependent on what the TD of this white is to get this effect. And so and more people are understanding that. I think that the TD really matters. The TD of the filaments really does matter to get the result you want. I actually have the other Peony too, which I really like. I worked on this for a while last night, and I kind of wanted to print it, but it was too late. Yeah, this one, a little bit of a tinge of yellow to it, and the purple in there. Yeah, when you hover over it, it does say which filaments are chosen on each slider. It just takes a moment to pop up. Do you have an example of a cell-shaded source file with greater than 4 colors? I mean, we can make a cell-shaded source file with greater than 4 colors. I limited them to 4 specifically to make it easier to slice. This one's 5, the way it's sliced now. You obviously get more control with more sliders. You can do a few more things. So, like for instance, I could bring in a lighter gray here and bring that up onto the helmet, and like some subtle shading here. That's probably too much on her nose, but we can get that gray in here on the edges of things and shade it more, shade right here, things like that. And then we can maybe bring a blue in. Even down low, that blue does some interesting things. That's probably not what we want. You change the color of her outfit though. There, we can put that on top of the gray if we wanted. It does make her look kind of sick, but you want to see a 16 color print? I don't want to see a 16 color print. Actually, so Jason, clear, and it depends on how you print it. If you print it fast and with alternating infill, it'll have a lower TD than if you print it with aligned infill and slower. And actually, the Polymaker's translucent PET Gs are actually pretty amazing. The green is about a 4.5, and it's really a true dark green in a 4.5. And one of the guys in the Discord has been just crushing it with the transparent PET Gs. Steve Smith, you want to request a Discord invite? Just hit me up in the HueForge store, HueForge.shop. On the shop chat. It's just easiest for me to do it from shop chat, and I'll drop you a current link. Discord is kind of annoying on how they handle their links. I can make a permanent link, or I can make a 7-day link, and that 7-day link is only issued once every 7 days. So on some day it expires, then all of a sudden I have to go. All these people who didn't go immediately and thought they had 7 days, and it's no good. More swaps when printing, right? I mean, obviously with an AMS, the number of swaps is not that big of a deal. And I have 2 AMS units on my printer. So fine. Oh, I don't have is there there's a Sunlu coffee. I have a TPO IMS coffee filament here. The Sunlu coffee here. Yeah. I don't think I have that one. That's one Ian has, and he's in the UK, so maybe he gets special colors in the UK. Maybe you should ask. Maybe we're going to start shipping filaments across continents to get people their colors. I really think that one of the things that I'm working towards is also that the filament library will allow you to make a new filament. You'll say, okay, I'm going to pick a new color, set a color, make a new filament. I want a really dark green. I want it even darker than that. And then I don't care what brand it is. We'll call it unknown right now. And dark green, but I really do want it to be a 3, or maybe I want it to 4.5, right? And I add it. What's coming, this will be after the Mac release, is you'll be able to then you'll be able to right click on it and say find this in my vendor libraries, and it'll find the closest matches for you, so you'll know what filament to go order to get the effect you want if you got a specific effect you want. Yeah. Okay. So Anna Paula 3D. So the color thing is hard because right now it's all luminance based. It's all based on the luminance calculations that are being done. And so if you have two of the same shade of gray in here, they're going to be the same height on the mesh. Yeah, browns are super, super low TD. Micro Center dead. You know, the Micro Center cardboard spools with the leaf on them are just Polymaker. So you should just order Polymaker through my affiliate link on Amazon, on Polymaker site, which is fulfilled by Amazon, and get the stuff the next day. That's a much better way than going to Micro Center debt. Just go into Polymaker or Amazon fulfillment debt. Yeah, well, you know, Ian is in the UK, so that's maybe why he can get the Sunlu there that we can't get other places. This screen looks awful in here. But basically, because it's luminance based, everything that's the same color gray is going to be the same luminance, and it's going to be the same layer. That's why some of these other modes exist, and the combo mode here, or this one's very alpha, but the scaled color mode, scaled max channel, or the color aware, which actually doesn't really work very well at all. In like a handful of images, it works. But those are there to try to get some of that. But I will be working on color awareness. That's a high ticket item for me to get color awareness or some sort of color awareness into this. It's very, very important to me. Does Sunlu make bamboo? I have heard rumors that some of the bamboo filaments are Sunlu. I don't know if that's true or not. I've actually been talking with several different filament makers, some in Europe. So hopefully we'll get some more European filament. Does my filament link? It does not provide a discount. I think they said we're drawing the line at paying people back for buying HueForge. Yes. Well, okay, fine. That's fair, Leland, about the Micro Center having what you want. I don't like waiting either. Still hear back on the affiliate link I failed. Yeah, it's all right. I mean, honestly, it's fine. I just appreciate that people want to use the affiliate links. If they forget, sometimes that's not a big deal. And I did ping the back end on Bamboo Lab about their affiliate link too, especially with the X1S coming out. I'd love to have an affiliate link for that. But yeah, Jeff Sucks. I think some of the bamboo filaments are Sunlu, but not all of them. Certainly not all of them, because I've tested. Ian has tested the PLA basics, and I've tested the PETG basics, and they're certainly not the same as the Sunlus in either category. A few of them are, but most of them aren't. So I think just some of them are made by Sunlu, and some of them are made by other people. Unless they're specifically saying this is the kind of you must use this much dye pigment, you must do that kind of thing, which I have no indication that they're doing. Oh, okay. So here's something that I think a lot of people don't understand, and I am going to actually probably do something about this, but it probably won't happen before. Probably won't happen before this. It almost certainly won't happen before this release, which is you add new filaments, and then I don't use them in these color schemes. I don't put them into these different sets. That's because these filament sets are literally filament sets. They are sets of specific filaments that have been picked for a particular use case to make a particular color and combination. And they're really kind of personal. And I just put these in as examples, like, hey, this is what you can do with a filament set. So I fully expected you to replace these filament sets. But if you are in here and you say, well, I don't have eSun Space Blue PLA, but I do have, Polylight Pro Light Blue, which isn't the same, but, you could drop it in there and say, that's what I have. And maybe you say, well, you know what, that's not as good. Let me get the Aqua Blue. The Aqua Blue is probably better. Okay, so I got the Aqua Blue. And then you say, well, I don't have this weird Just Maker brown PETG, but I do have, I'm just going to go Polymaker because I got a ton of colors here. Polyterra Army Brown. And, a black's a black, but let's just say you have the charcoal black. And then you say, okay, well, I don't have this JO white. I just have the Polylight Pro white. and I have the lemon yellow here. So you can do this and then just save it, add an update, and save this set with a new set. Now, obviously, it doesn't look exactly the same. You need to adjust it and play with it. But the point is that you can adjust these and make them your own and just pull the colors that are close that you do own. Squirrel Tech. So I'm recommending for individual users to do it one of two ways. All of them are basically perceptual. You print the step test, which I have a video for, and then you inspect it compared to the step test in Hue Forge. You bring it up and look at the same thing. You make it in your slicer. You cut it at 1.04 millimeters. Put the black on the bottom and your color that you're testing on top. One slice or one cut, one layer shift or one layer change. You're doing 0.16 and 0.08. And as someone pointed out, you could do variable layer and do 0.16 all the way up to just below, and then do 0.08 and then 0.08 the rest of the way. And then you print it, and then you load up the step test in Hue Forge and watch it. There's a whole video on that part, but people do get confused because I think you have to load it up, set the color, and export it. But it's already in STL. You don't need to export it. And no, so Gene, if you mix PLAs and PETGs, they won't stick. So don't do that. And I will actually call that out in the describe. That's where I have some describe changes coming in, and I'll call out if these filaments aren't the same and say, hey, PLA and PETG don't go together. ABS and PLA, like these don't go together. You want to use the same filaments. Yeah. And so, yeah, mixing PLA and PETG is no bueno. Oh, these red boxes, they don't update properly right now, but the red boxes indicate whether you own the filament or you don't own the filament. But the other thing is, I'm just going to call you S-Tech because I'm not exactly sure how to say. Squirrel Tech. You're Squirrel Tech. Okay. You can, if you want to buy equipment and do it, you can. It's definitely better and more repeatable. Disturbed Medic's been doing it for Polymaker. He's using the oscilloscope and a light sensor and a calibrated light and calibrating by all the directions and finding out where the light drops to a certain level and saying that's your TD. We have had some issues where spools have been different in the middle because no one's been checking for this. I don't blame anyone for not having their TDs all locked down because no one's been looking for TDs in their filaments, except in general, like, oh, I want it more opaque or, oh, I want it less opaque. So no one's really been trying specifically to hit a TD number. And so so we've had some spools where the beginning of a spool is very, very different from the end of the spool, but most of the spool is the same. So you may get a spool of any filament manufacturer and find out that it's really doesn't match what you thought, like what you measured the first time. Like my JO White, the first spool I had was a 9 and the second spool was a 6. ABS. Ajax prints all ABS all the time, and he's been doing great with it. And he doesn't have any stringing problems. That's one of the benefits of ABS is it does melt more. And so he has no stringing issues whatsoever with his, which I am a little bit jealous of, especially since I like to print PETG, which likes to string. Though it's really not as bad as people say, but it does like to string. So he's been printing exclusively ABS because he's weird, but he's been printing great stuff that's been working out perfectly fine. Okay, let me see if there's something else. I was going to hit... I was going to look at... So one of the things I was going to look at is one of the fun things to do with Hue Forge is to not follow the color of the original image. So this is effectively a blue scale image. And actually, there's a ton of blues, so you can easily make blue scale images. It's really... I mean, there's so many options for blues that it's pretty easy to make a nice blue scale image using the different blues. Let me sort by blue. Using your different blues. So we have our aqua down here, and then we have they're both aquas. I grabbed both aquas. Where's the other one? Why are they named? Oh, azure. We have azure here and aqua here, right? And then we have a white here, and we can adjust and play with that and get something we like. We might want to change our bright enhance to 2. It actually does seem to, more photographic stuff seems to use bright enhance 2 a little bit more. Okay, but we don't have to be stuck in blue world. There's also a bunch of other colors. We got the sunloop purples. We got these, you maybe have a dark purple, or maybe you want to use a dark blue, a polylight dark blue down here. And then put purples on top of it instead. And you can put this sunloop purple here, and we put this purple here, and we get a purple cast, or we can do reds, or we can do greens. So like one of the fun things is you can take a source image and make it your own with your own color scheme when you don't really worry about it. Yeah, in general, the community overall has been complaining about transparent filaments, that, oh, they don't get color representation, they don't give me what I want. But in reality, there's some space for it. I kind of like a mixture. I like a mixture of different filament colors. And sometimes even one layer of a more opaque filament, like here, can give you a really cool, this is 8 to 9. There's one layer of red here, but it gives a shadowing, a shading that's really cool. Utility filament co-ops and samples. So the plan right now, a lot of vendors are starting to come out of the woodwork and ask for help calculating their TD. And the plan is that I will work with vendors, help them get people who know how to do it the same way to calculate their TDs for them. And then I will take their vendor libraries as locked input libraries into the system. And then users will be able to import from their vendor library into an active library, their user library. Yeah, so some vendors are really, really picky about that. And some vendors, though, who have been answering the call of their users, and their users say, no, I don't like this, I want it to be different. They have been, theirs have changed, but they've changed because their users have demanded that they change. But yeah, so the plan is to make the vendor libraries basically locked libraries that you don't overwrite, and you only ever interact with in the program your active library. And that way you could bring in their hex code and stuff and say, but my spool doesn't match, so I'm going to change my spool to be a different TD because it's not the same. I've gotten prints, you get a print, you print something, you thought it had one value and it turns out totally different. And that's the other thing you do. You take this and you go back into HueForge, load up the model, and you tweak your TDs until they match. And then you say, okay, this spool doesn't have the TD of 7 that I measured. It has a TD of 2.5. And so I need to change that. And then that spool is your local one. Yeah, higher passes more. The higher is less opaque, more transparent. So a TD is the transmission distance of light. It's a term I made up, as far as I know. I used to call it transmissivity, but people have a really hard time saying that, so I stopped. And TD is a nice abbreviation. But the higher the TD, the further light will go through it before it gets stopped, before it gets really dark. And so because I started with lithophanes, and let's go look at a lithophane again for people who are coming here new. I started with color lithophanes, and actually, I don't think I want that black. Let's get purple out of here right now. Maybe I want a gray. This is, I can make lithophanes in here too. And this is a lithophane. This would be backlit. The black's on top, the reds on the whites on the bottom. And I wanted to know, I wanted to do color this way. And I needed to know for each filament, how much of it could I stack up before it became opaque, before I stopped seeing my light through it, so that I wasn't wasting a bunch of layers when it was going to be black anyway. And so it's literally how far through will the light go before it stops. Higher path. So yeah. But the thing is that there is no one right answer as to what TD is better. I have definitely had cases where I want a higher TD, and I've had cases where I want a lower TD. Like all the reds we could find for a while were all high TD, 7.5, 8, 6.5 was the best. And so we really wanted a 3. Ian and I were looking around, where can we find a 3 TD, 4 TD red where we can actually pick up some color quickly and not need a ton of layers of red. Okay, great. Thank you, Major Gamer Geek. Yeah, exactly. More more layers, but you can get smoother gradients for sure. But yeah, it's more layers to get the same effect. I will say that you can get away with thicker layers in lithophane mode than you can in filament painting mode. In lithophane mode, the layer steps don't matter, or because the TD is so much higher, the blending is much smoother. These are actually like really nice. You can barely see any steps in here when you look at this. There are some, but at 0.08, the steps are almost invisible. Yeah, so a few people have made lithophanes, not too many. Normally with a lithophane, I will add a border. And adding border does require you to remesh. It's just it's a bug. And then you get a border that's goes around the edge, and you can slot it into your lit up frame, your backlit frame. That's why most of the time I put a border on there, and I don't put a border on filament paintings that often. Okay, I'm thinking I'm wrapping up. I'll give a couple minutes for people to ask like your pressing questions, but I need to get back to coding, and actually I've already gone half an hour long. So anything else you want, or things you want me to consider covering in small videos, like chunks of videos for the future, or other community members? I'm more than happy to host other community members' videos or point you to other community members' videos as they make videos to show how to use HueForge, because I don't have a ton of time to do all the content. Okay. I can try. Okay, I appreciate the suggestion. The only issue with that suggestion is that it kind of varies, and you kind of need experience to understand a little bit about that. But it's a good suggestion in general, and just it is hard to know. It is hard to understand until you played around with HueForge. It's hard to understand how the TD matters. Oh, fresh install and solved all your issues. Okay, you just like downloaded a new version and reinstalled it and just re-unzipped it somewhere. But okay. Yes, I will repost this on the channel. I don't exactly know how it works, but yes, I will make sure this posts as a non-live afterwards. I'm brand new to doing all this stuff, but I know that that's an option, and I am planning on that option. Thank you very much, JS. And then, am I planning on going open source one day? Not at the moment. No, not really. I mean, I could. I mean, if someone wanted to come pay me to go open source on that, then we could have that conversation. But yeah, there's a section for that for my live videos to say. Yeah, I know it's there. I'm running through StreamYard for the first time and doing a live stream for the first time. So, but it's been pretty easy to figure out what I need to do, except for the whole hit the check button, hit the check box. Let me stop sharing the screen. Except for the whole part where I had to hit the checkbox to want to go live 24 hours before I wanted to go live the first time, and I didn't know that. Tricks on slicing. Oh yeah, that'd be great. I'd be happy to bring on some of the other community members as guests and have them basically run the show and talk about what their lessons learned. That's a great idea. I'll probably do that. And yeah, so, and I would say that for photos, I know a lot of people, someone asked for photos earlier. It's a really good question. And I'd love to actually have maybe someone who's done some photos come on and say, this is what I do for photos and what I found that works. I know Ian's done some photos, but time-wise, it's always difficult for him to show up here because he's in the UK. And then I'm hoping he'll come. I'm hoping to have him do a couple streams European time so that the Europeans can be here live. Hey, Buana, good to see you. Yeah, it should be saved. And not everyone can make it. I know the Awesome Squad was meeting with Polymaker, and there's a lot of Polymaker people that have been really great for HueForge. I will be at IRF, if anyone doesn't know that. Ian might be at IRF too. We haven't worked out the final details on that yet. And I'm planning on probably, I can't do live streams constantly, but I'm thinking probably once a week or once every 2 weeks, I'll try to do a live stream. Yeah, I think photos are really interesting because black and white almost always can work, though. I have found some cases where like really artsy high key photos and things like that can be really hard to get any white. Your white just gets all looks the same. and certain other things can be problematic, but oftentimes you can get away with a lot with black and white and then just start bringing in colors to it that kind of complement the scene and play with it that way. All right. Well, thank you guys. You guys have been a really great crowd tonight. I'm glad you guys could join. And again, I look forward to probably do another one. I'll do another one probably for the next release, and I'll walk through the release. And then I'll do one hopefully once the Mac release comes out. And then it probably take a little time. And I'm really excited to actually start working on real new features. This has mostly just been quality of life and bug fixes, which I know needed to be done, and I kind of already planned on it. But I'm really excited to look at, you know, color aware and more color control and things like that. So I know everyone wants that. All right. Thank you very much. Good night, all.